The Beastmen are feeling themselves right now, there's no denying it. They've upgraded from anemic little goat people lost and forgotten to the uber-hench, muscle-bound, predatorial cows they were always destined to be. Not since the age of classical antiquity have minotaurs and centaurs received this much loving. But a dwarf goon squad looks on in disgust, eager to try out their new explosive runes and keenly sharpened blades on the invaders. More Silence and the Fury action coming your way today, and unlike England in penalty shootouts, your boy never misses. It's a Jabber build for the ages, testing out their Aura of Madness, spurting Bile Blood, and 25 bonus versus infantry against the Dwarfs. And on paper, they might be a trap against the Dawi. People tend to look at AP and bonus versus infantry and automatically assume it'll be a good choice. But Dwarfs have very good leadership, makes it harder to activate the DOT from Aura of Madness, deals magic damage base, and they're a massive target for handguns and cannon fire. Not incredibly quick either. But they do have a lot of mass, and they have crazy animations that easily carry them out of harm's way or into an enemy back line. So I felt like it'd be worth seeing what they can do. The Vorburg Land Broodmother on the other side of the field is even better in this matchup than a regular Jabber because its Bile Blood pierces armor, unlike the normal version, and it sunders armor with its attacks as well. So 2 Jabberslythe, a couple Bestigors, and a Chariot squad made up entirely of Tuskgor mounts all the way on the right flank. Now, this was one of our first matches in Early Access, before we found out that Wargors are super OP, but he will be conferring the Will of the Dark Gods on all nearby units as a Brave Shaman and unit of Tuskgor's Rampage in the back line. So that Chariot squad has a lot of potential to deal tremendous damage against a Dawi build. Only 2 spells for the caster, Pendulum and Pit of Shades, for unleashing maximum carnage, and that juicy 20 bonus versus infantry from the Chariot itself. You guys know what Taurox is all about now. Combining high armor and big ward saves with tons of damage output, he is an intimidating force on the field of battle, and has quickly become one of the best Beastmen lore choices in both campaign and multiplayer. My opponent all the way across the way will be Okoi the Meme Lord. He'll be facing down my Ungor Rush. Link to his channel will be in the pinned comment and description below, and he has built his entire army around that patented Gotrek and Felix Death Star. Seen it before, can be very good against quite a few factions, and it has undeniable synergy with Thorek Ironbrow. Tons of ward saves to go around, passive healing for all nearby characters with Blood Oath, and an absolutely monster stat line from Gotrek means they have the power to take on Taurox and put him in the ground pretty quick, if they can catch him. The Master Rune Lord of Karak Azul has committed to the Rune of Oath and Steel and the Rune of Wrath and Ruin alongside his Rune Armor, which will make everyone around him tankier against the Brass Bull's flaming attacks. He will not have his Rune of Doom though, as that is only available astride his Anvil. There are 3 units of Iron Drakes for immolating onrushing hordes, 2 Giant Slayers, a bunch of Longbeards, and some Rangers in the back, so a high and tight formation with the hero homies in the center. And what they're going to try to do here is make sure the Beastmen can't collapse in from all sides at once, try and protect those Rangers, get some good shots into the relatively low armor, only 60, of the Jabberslythe, and once those are off the field, they can focus on shutting down the Chariots and Taurox himself. Dwarfs have a commanding position atop that hill, and if they had cannons, this Beastman approach to the trees would probably be the correct play, but they don't have any artillery whatsoever, likely because it's difficult to keep them online against all the mass and speed the Cloven Ones can bring to bear. So mostly this attack through the jungle is just to look cool. Right now, having not played the matchup too much since the patch, I'd say that some combination of Rune of Slowness, Thunderers, and Trollhammer Torpedoes are going to be your best friends as the Dwarfs, because you need a way to limit the Beastmen's mobility, to snare them, to slow them down, and then you need units on top of that to burst them down and quickly follow up. The Giant Slayers can do that, the Gotrek and the Goonies can do that, but having some reliable burst damage against armored targets from range should be a top priority, especially knowing what Tuskgor Chariots are capable of doing right now. So the Beastmen are going to overload the Dwarfs' left flank here. You see the Rangers have already shifted to that side to try to shoot in, but if the Beastmen completely overload that side, there aren't going to be enough Dwarfs over there to prevent the flank, and preventing flanking has never exactly been one of their strong suits anyway. Scorched Earth policy coming out of the Iron Drakes right now. Ketchup-flavored Ungors spontaneously combusting into their liquid form, and there are 4 of them on the field. This is what they're supposed to do. They're supposed to absorb all the actual fire on the way in, so the Bestigors don't have to. Bestigors should beat Longbeards in a somewhat protracted engagement, especially if you get a good charge off. if you especially get multiple good charges off, use them like cavalry, get some cycle charges in, they can do wonders for you. Brutal pendulum down on 2 full units of rangers, taking them both down to about half HP, and one of them will try to escape by running forward, and they'll get caught out by the rest of the infantry and chariots charging in from the flank. Tuskgor Chariot, the Wargore, into the middle of it all, as the Jabberslythe just doesn't even care, dropping the people's elbow on the back line into a bunch of slayers, which might not be the best target for him to engage. Other Jabberslythe busting through the center, and their mass and their 65 speed, which is not crazy mobile, but certainly enough to close down Dawi troops, allows them to just run through without a care in the world. Look at how easily he was able to get through. That is an important facet to think about when you're talking about the Beastmen's tools in this matchup now. The fact that they can just bust straight through Ironbreakers, Longbeards, without much care in the world, dive into the rear, start getting on top of the Thunderers and Quarrelers, which are units they can easily kill in melee combat. But remember, Thorek Ironbrow has a whole new runic magic system to unleash on the world, and Rune of Wrath and Ruin, clearing out some space for the Dawi infantry. Look at that damage, man. That is so incredibly satisfying to watch. Taurox got to be careful, too, because with Gotrek on the field, with Felix on the field, with the Giant Slayers on the field, there is plenty of armor piercing. Plenty enough bonus versus large to slice through that armored hide quickly. The Vorberland Broodmother and the Jabberslythe together have completely overloaded this flank, though. The Chariot Squad and the Jabberslythes, which kind of function like chariots in some ways. They're a little bit slower than a Wargore Chariot, but not by much, and they have the bonus versus infantry and the AP, so they kind of do function similarly. All that flank overload has left the Dawi in disarray, and they no longer own that hill, and before the Rangers and Iron Drakes can even reposition, more chariots charging in, living up to their name, goring and tusking some poor Dawi. At the moment, most of their range troops are tied down. There is one unit of flamethrowers still free, getting some good value shooting into the Beastgors. Remember that Iron Drakes have good AP values. They actually pierce armor relatively decently, so you can't have your elite infantry get shot up by them for too long. Taurox is in a somewhat dangerous position at the moment. Giant Slayer surrounding him, Thorek, Felix, and Gotrek nearby. But again, he has high mass and heavy cavalry speed, so he can disengage and get out of that situation pretty quickly. Gotrek can't catch him. At the moment, Beastgor's on the hunt for some Iron Drakes. Chariot's ready to go in too. And it's looking like a horrible start for the Dwarfs, but there is something to be said about Beastmen momentum. We know how their battles used to go. Beastmen always start out strong. They always get out to an early lead, almost invariably. But then they can hit that brick wall, and the Dwarfs can outlast them in a long, grinded out fight. At the moment, though, the Jabberslythe is feasting, spurting bilious bile blood all over all these pimpins, and the Beastgor is getting thrown left, right, and center by the Hero Goon Squad, which will be the linchpin anyway. When you got so much of your funds tied up in 3 hero characters, your army is going to look smaller anyway. It's about the value they can generate against those high-value targets. So far, they haven't been on top of the Jabberslythe or the Chariots or even Taurox for very long, which is a problem. But now, with the Rangers isolated from the rest of the pack, being hunted down by the terror-causing monsters in the background, the rest of the Dwarfs can collapse in, form that shield wall around their lord, get the benefit from his runes, and hold out against the onrushing hordes. Beastmen infantry has been well cleared out, but the single entity monsters and Taurox and his chariots are the biggest threat. I mean, they're the armor piercing ones, they're the damage dealers for the cloven ones, and the fact that the Dwarfs have not been able to isolate and chop them down with their Hero Goon Squad is a problem, but those single entities will have to commit at some point. Longbeard's actually getting hit by the Aura of Madness, which is no small feat, considering they are immune to psychology. The tongue flicking out, ripping a few of their number asunder, and at the moment, Taurox and the Jabberslythe deciding that they don't really want to take on a horde of Giant Slayers and Gotrek in the middle of it all. Gotrek would probably beat Taurox in a straight-up fight if he had even the tiniest amount of infantry support. Taurox has the benefit, of course, of being able to run around and cycle charge. He has much better mobility than the Mohat Slayer ever could. But the Tuskgor Chariots charging in, taking actually a lot of damage from that Iron Drake volley. Low armor is not great when you're being shot by Scorching Flame. And the Wargore Chariot running after some Rangers, making sure they cannot return because they are a threat to the Jabberslythe despite the big monster's missile resist. So he's having a fun time over here, might return to the fold soon. And it's all about repositioning and thinking about how best to crack this nut. The heroes still have a decent amount of infantry support. There are Giant Slayers, which are of course a major threat to all the important units left on the Beastmen side of things. So making sure not to commit too early, making sure all your units are free to engage from multiple angles and get that full surround off is a big deal. Because when a Jabber is charging in from the front, and a Jabber is charging in from the flank, Aura of Madness activates that much easier because leadership is dropping for those Longbeards. Best Duel are getting a rear charge in, Taurox smacking stuff up from the front. Gotta make sure you attack from multiple angles when you're up against the Dawi. If you just slam straight on into that shield wall in the front ranks, you might be in for a bad time, especially if the Iron Drakes have a little bit more time to fire. So let the Ungor herd take the brunt of this initial volley, and they will. They'll die, or oh my lord. Oh my god. That entire unit just straight up evaporated, but they did what they were meant to do. They opened the avenue of attack for the rest of these Beastmen monsters, and now it's a grind. Now it's about that cycle charging. Now it's about the rune magic and seeing what Thorek can do to hold the line. Big attacks coming in from Taurox the Brass Bull and his rune tortured axes, but that Rune of Wrath and Ruin opening up some more space for the heroes to maybe chop down the Lord and monsters. Gotrek is on top of Taurox here. That's where he wants to be, and he has support. Pit of Shades dropping, definitely dodged by Okoye. Longbeard's getting out of the way of that spell. Not going to do a whole lot of damage. Chariot's disengaging, but a lot of wavering on the Dwarf line, and the balance bar shifting ever more in the favor of the Slaughterhorn tribe. And his momentum, his brass body, carrying him to a commanding lead in this battle. The Dwarfs are running out of steam, and their heroes are going to have a lot of difficulty taking out Tuskgor Chariots, half HP Jabberslythe, and Taurox the Brass Bull. Gotrek has done a ton of burst damage to Taurox, but he ran out of all his support, and now a worthy adversary to duel. And it might just be the doom that Gotrek has so eagerly been awaiting. He was actually going to beat Taurox there. I actually think he was going to beat Taurox if the Brass Bull did not disengage. He was a couple hits from death, but so was Taurox, and Heroic Fortitude popped, but Gotrek didn't get any HP from it, and oh my god, he got ran over by a chariot. That was the saddest death. I can't believe he just died like that. He was going to beat up Taurox, got his HP proc, and then absolutely nothing came out of it. The Broodmother munching on Felix's booty. Thorek surrounded by a Jabberslythe and Taurox the Brass Bull, and though they've lost all their support, it's all about the monsters now, and they've got more than enough HP to carry this to victory. Felix going flying straight over the mountains like Uncle Rico and the footballs he can throw. People's elbow on top of Thorek Ironbrow, and this game is straight up over. GG, well played. Army losses kicks in, and the Beastmen are going to take it on the back of a bunch of single entities, which I guess isn't massively shocking considering the army they brought. And an interesting thought experiment with the Jabberslythe. I'm not utterly convinced about their value in this particular matchup. I think they can be good. I think their mass and animations are very useful. But stuff like Tuskgor Chariots and the Wargore on a Tuskgor Chariot mount, Taurox, those kind of units I think are going to be more important. I think you can go wider here and probably be more efficient with the Beastmen. I think you might see the Broodmother in the Dwarf matchup occasionally, but if it dies, you're losing a lot of gold. But on the Dwarf side of things, I think cutting those Rangers and going for Thunderers, a Trollhammer, maybe cutting an Iron Drake, adding in a couple more fodder troops in the front ranks just to bolster that front line would have really helped out. Against the Beastmen, they have so much mobility that keeping your Rangers online, giving them enough time to fire, is going to be extremely difficult. The nice thing about Thunderers and Trollhammers is even though they can also get tied down in the exact same way, they deal all their burst damage that much quicker, and they can do it against armored targets as well. They don't need as much time to get value back. That's why you bring them against Chariots. That's why you bring them against Taurox. That's why you want to have them in this matchup. Combine that with Rune of Speed, or Slowness rather, and I think you're onto something that will allow you to isolate those single entity targets, take them down quickly, and swing the balance of power in your favor early on in the battle. Hope you guys enjoyed. GG to Okoye, and I'll see you all in the next one. Peace out.